something and this means something, yeah, this means 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 something and this means something, and 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 this means something and this means something, yeah.
All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us here on This Means Something with me, your host, your pal, Mikey Joseph O'Connor, man. It is a lovely summer evening here in beautiful Portland, Oregon. So I'm doing the intro to the podcast walking around outside. You know, I got my white guy basketball shorts on. I'm incredibly pale. I look like I've never ever seen the sun, but the beauty of it is it's twilight right now, so I'm pretty sure that my legs count as a reflective material, because Jesus Christ, I really got to get out more. On the show today we have author, chef, science dude, author of the Sasquatch Seekers Field Manual. He's known as the Bug Chef. He's an interesting dude. Mr. David George Gordon is on the show. He's on today. I'm sorry, we missed a show last week because I was on tour with the old Noel Roars, my punk band. And yeah, it was good. It was a good tour. I'm going to do a whole episode, I think maybe next week, a whole episode of just about the tour, because it was a lot of fun. As for anything else, that's about it. Why don't we get right into it and talk to Mr. David George Gordon on the show. This means something. Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Excellent. So I read.
Hit record.
Absolutely. So I read some of the book. I read an excerpt from it. And I wanted to say what really kind of struck me is the practicality of it. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what your background was before writing the book. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, first I should tell you, I wrote that book it came out in 1998.
Okay.
And has been revised since. So the new edition is about 3 years old. But, you know, the book itself is like 17 years old. So when I started, I for a living, I'm a science writer.
Right.
When I started, it was kind of like, wow, what a wild idea. People eat bugs all around the world except here.
Of course.
So that's kind of what inspired me to start looking into more and more about where people eat bugs. Now, this was before shows like Bizarre Foods or any, Anthony Bourdain or any of those shows on TV. So
Right.
most of the information was actually in science journals like anthropology texts and things.
Interesting.
So I had to do a lot of sleuthing around. But as far as actually being a chef, I've taken classes. I'm a graduate of a Thai cooking school in Bangkok.
Wow.
Yeah, but as far as cooking, it's mostly a love. It's a love of mine. So writing a cookbook was combining two different loves, writing and cooking, and that's why I came out with that book.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, because I'm a cook myself, and I'm always interested in like trying something new. That's such a huge part of it that keeps things exciting.
Well, the thing that's so funny is, for practicality's sake, in the last 17 years, it's gone from kind of like surreptitiously buying crickets at a pet store, because that's where you could get them,
right,
to places like a company called Aspire in Austin, Texas, that now raises organically grown crickets expressly for human consumption.
Yeah, there's a place here in Portland that does, for a happy hour, they do fried crickets. It's a type.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And I've gone to a place called Sushi Mazi or Mazi Sushi, I can't recall which, that serves a grasshopper sushi that's quite good.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right in that there are so many places in the world that that's such a huge source of protein, and I wonder, a big thing for me is like, we better learn to start eating this stuff now.
That's right. The UN came out with a report a couple of years ago that said basically the way the populations on our planet are growing, We couldn't give everyone a hamburger if we wanted to.
Right.
So now is the time to start exploring the idea of raising more edible insects for the world's cultures.
Do you think that because of things like, like your book, and Bizarre Foods and stuff like that, that it's becoming more in the human consciousness to try something new, like it's getting more into the culture? And
oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. Like I said, when I started writing the book, it was kind of a weird idea. But now I think because of all the interest, all the foodies that are out there and the interest in trying something new, and that coupled with this whole message that it's more environmentally sustainable, there are a lot of people that are now experimenting and are now a lot more open-minded about that.
Right. Yeah, I think that, and I think, the biggest thing is the sustainability of it, yeah?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting argument because it does really ring true, especially in terms of the amount of food and water it takes to raise a cow, for example.
It's crazy.
So that we can, it's something like, I forget what the actual number is, 2,000 gallons of water per pound of steak.
Right.
So, nowadays, water resources, that's a big issue. And yes, environmentally, it's much smarter to raise bugs. The thing is, though, I think people like to think that, and that's a good thing. But unless the food tastes good, they're not going to go for it. Like, not. Here, eat cardboard is good for the planet.
Right.
So that's part of what I look into, is actually making these things surprisingly tasty.
Yeah, and I mean, that's huge. They always say, anything that's deep fried is going to be good no matter pretty much what it is, and that's
right.
That's a huge, especially in like Asian culture, that's a big part of what they do is frying, and it'll work wonders.
Yeah, I have a recipe in my book for a deep fried tarantula spider.
Wow.
And I recently catered the cocktail hour at the Explorers Club annual dinner.
Very cool.
That's like a big deal in New York at the American Museum of Natural History. And the reason I bring this up is Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's kind of the equivalent of Carl Sagan nowadays.
Sure.
He was there, and there's video of him eating one of the spiders.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is because I'm familiar with a lot of the laws and stuff involved with like catering and stuff like that. Is there a special permit that you have to get? Is there, because you have to put like on menus, you have to put a disclaimer like eating undercooked eggs or meat or what have you. Is there any kind of something like that?
Well, the biggest disclaimer is people who have shellfish allergies are likely to have allergies towards grasshoppers or any of the bugs.
Right.
They're not immediately related, but they're close enough that can trigger an allergic reaction.
That had not occurred to me. Right.
Yeah. But the other thing is there's a lot of debate right now over how to regulate edible insects. And on the federal level, they've been kind of keeping their heads in the sand about it for a really long time. It's a slow process. But on a state level, it seems to vary from city to city. I've had, for example, I've been banned in Boston a long time ago for doing a program.
Really?
Where they said, you can cook the bugs, but you can't serve anyone.
Interesting. Well, okay.
So I got around that by saying, well, I can't serve you, but I can't stop you from helping yourself.
There you go.
But, then I've also had places like Los Angeles. I do a program every year that's a really large-scale event at the Natural History Museum. They come and inspect, but what they're really looking for is more things like open cartons of milk that are going to get contaminated.
Right.
They're not concerned about the bugs themselves.
Interesting.
So right now, the reactions are all over the map.
Yeah, I would imagine so, and I guess it kind of, it depends on the crowd as well, and who you're making stuff for.
I was just telling someone the other day that when I did a program, I live in Seattle. When I did a program here, and this is again like 10 or 12 years ago, the health department said, well, if you're going to be cooking outdoors, you need a canopy over your cooking area so bugs don't fall into your food. I know, I love that one. It's one of my favorites.
That is great. One of the other biggest things that I thought was really interesting about your whole kind of philosophy is the citizen science.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a new book out about the Sasquatch.
Sure, absolutely. I read some of that as well.
And that's called the Sasquatch Seekers Field Manual. It just came out this year. And it's really looking at how you can capitalize on the great search. I'm not suggesting that the Sasquatch exists if it doesn't exist, because the data that's been gathered so far is pretty lame.
Sure.
So I want people to be trained in how to gather data and report it back so that scientists can look at it and resolve this question. And that's citizen science is basically taking so-called amateur scientists, training them in data collection techniques, data gathering techniques, and then sending them out. With all those eyes and ears out in the wilderness, we're more likely to find something significant than if we just send a TV crew out there every couple of weeks.
Well, sure, right. And one of the things that in the excerpt I read from that book as well is that, it takes patience for any kind of, anything out in the wilderness, anything out in nature is going to take a lot of patience, whether you're bird watching, whether it's, anything.
Yeah, I love to tell this story because to me it sort of says a lot about our hunt for the Sasquatch. There was a study conducted a long time ago about grizzly bears in Washington state, and it was thought at that time, and later was proved to be correct, that they were exterminated here in Washington, but they've been reintroducing themselves through the Cascade Mountains coming in from British Columbia. Mm-hmm. So they sent a team of field biologists out to look for the grizzlies in Washington. And that team spent 5 years out in the field gathering information. Well, during those 5 years, they saw lots of footprints. They saw, the claw marks on trees. They saw a grizzly scat, but they never saw an actual grizzly bear in that entire 5 year study.
Amazing.
So if something like an 8 foot tall grizzly bear can elude people for 5 years, think of like a large primate.
Right.
That you think might be a little sneaky or a little more stealthy.
Absolutely.
So I think it's going to take a concerted effort for people to really find and confirm or deny that creature's existence.
Sure. I mean, and I think a lot of people don't understand, especially up here in the Northwest, how much wilderness there is. It's massive. All right, everybody. This episode of the podcast has been brought to you by Hellahesh Hot Sauce. It's HellaHeshHotSauce.com. It's not just a hot sauce for pizza. It's a lifestyle choice. If you're a pizza fan, who isn't? We all like to sit around and get a big pizza with with hot dogs in the crust or whatever it is you like, and eat it in the dark. We all love that. But sometimes you need to. If there's one thing that I've learned being a broke man my whole life, it's how to church up shitty food. And I tell you, hot sauce, that's the way to go. So if if you just got your shitty Domino's or whatever pizza, yeah, you get the Hellahesh hot sauce. Put it on there. It's gonna change your perspective. Keep it a Hellahesh. All hail the Maychild. You can follow us on Instagram, Hellahesh Hot Sauce, or just HellaHeshHotSauce.com, just for all your needs there. Hellahesh Hot Sauce. That's right. It's not just a hot sauce for pizza. It's a lifestyle choice.
That's right. Recently I was looking up some statistics. And I forget maybe it was about the bald eagle. But, British Columbia does not have a provincial endangered species act like the state of Washington or Oregon might. And if you look at a map and it's like, well, gee, there's Vancouver, there's Victoria, there's some towns kind of scattered around out through there. And then you go north, and it's just, you might as well be in the North Pole or in Alaska or something. It's just completely remote areas with very little civilization.
Right.
So that would be a wonderful place to be a Sasquatch, I would think.
Sure, absolutely, and it's just such a massive area, and that's so interesting that looking for just a grizzly bear that maybe isn't as self-aware. Took years and was just as difficult.
Yeah, I've heard similar things about the Sumatran rhinoceros. It's an endangered rhinoceros that people can go out in the field and for months at a time and not even see one.
Right. Oh, that's crazy.
So that's an even bigger animal.
Right.
But But yeah, it's kind of amazing to me. Of course, the other thing is it's like if a tree falls in the woods, you can only have Sasquatch sightings where there are people to do the sighting.
Sure.
So that's the thing. Maybe in areas where civilization is encroaching on wilderness, you might be more likely to see traces of a Sasquatch. But for the most part, there are these whole untrammeled parts of the Northwest and elsewhere that a Sasquatch could be having a wonderful picnic lunch and we wouldn't know about it.
Sure. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I mean, if you have, like, I'm from Northern California, and I know if you have, like you were saying, more civilization that's kind of encroaching on wilderness, I mean, that's right. You're going to have more sightings of bears. You know, bears they get so accustomed to humans to begin with. I mean, you're going to have more sightings of anything if it's kind of coming in on an animal's territory.
That's right. It seems to be the case with cougars now in Washington.
Really?
A lot of the subdivisions we used to be cougar territory. So then they see one, everyone's shocked.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, we have coyotes down here that come and just kind of wander around the middle of the street. It's amazing.
Sure. Right. Well, they were there first.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, very cool, man. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Oh, wonderful. I really appreciate your giving me a buzz.
Absolutely. And that's David George Gordon. He's the author of The Bug Chef. And I'm sorry, what was the name of the Sasquatch book?
Oh, the Sasquatch book is called The Sasquatch Seekers Field Manual.
That's right. Absolutely.
And my cookbook is called the Eat a Bug Cookbook.
Eat a Bug Cookbook. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
All right, folks, that is going to just about do it for the show. I want to thank Mr. David George Gordon for being on the program. And, you know, you can follow me on Instagram or on Twitter, Mikey J. O'Connor. It's MikeyYJOCONNOR. You can always find the show at This Means Something Pod. No. God, Jesus. thismeanssomething.podbean.com. I gotta get on that domain. thismeanssomething.podbean.com. Oh, dear. Alright, we'll see you next week. Next Thursday. I'm out of breath just walking around. Horrible.